Does leaving your shoes laced up in between usage cause your shoes to wear out quicker? Well, let me show you exactly what happened when I ran an experiment to test this out. So, like I said, I literally ran an experiment, where I did a 3-month marathon build in a single brand new pair of running shoes. I ran approximately 60 kilometers a week leading up to the Vancouver Marathon. My left shoe I stored with the laces untied, which is what I always try to make a habit of doing anyways. But of course, like many of you, I often just kick my shoes off when they're still laced up and then jam my feet back in again while they're still laced. Sometimes I will do this and then relace them afterwards anyways to get a snug fit, which makes absolutely no logical sense. Anyways, for my right shoe, I stored them with the laces tied up. I just kicked them off after every run, then I slid back into them when it was time for my next run. I did often find myself relacing the right shoe once my foot was in the shoe to make sure that the fit was consistent. But the overall experiment goal was achieved through this process. So what was the goal? Well, it was to compare the wear, perceived comfort, and performance of the pair of shoes over the 3 months. Most specifically, I was interested in the wear of the upper part of the shoes because this is the area that I have found often wears out first and the most. Yes, the shoe foam can pack out or harden, making them less cushiony, but it seemed like more of a stretch, pun intended, that it would be impacted by the lacing during storage. And here they are for you. As promised, you can see the left and right shoe. After 3 months of running, you can see that there's actually a clear difference in the shoe wear. The right shoe has some peeling on the inner midsole and the left shoe doesn't have that peeling. You can also see that the creasing pattern is different between the two. Overall, a relatively modest difference over 3 months, but I was not really expecting a big difference anyways. And like many of you, I was thinking that there might not have been a visible difference at all. FYI, I am aware that these are trail running shoes and therefore not designed for road running as much. But I did run a lot of light trail and these were the shoes that I had to work with at the time. So the rest of this video breaks down why I did this experiment, the research I attempted, the experiment's parameters, the results of the test in more detail, and finally some possible variables that could have unintentionally exaggerated the resulting variance in shoe wear. So why did I do this experiment? Well, just like most of you, I've worn shoes my entire life. I learned how to tie my own laces when I was about 25, when I was 5. But I've also worn running shoes my whole life and I've been an avid runner for a long time. So because I run a lot, I have to buy running shoes a lot. And that can get expensive. So it got me thinking, how can I extend the life of my running shoes and also keep them performative while I am running in them? I have also always had this superstition that my running shoes are able to relax more when they are unlaced between my runs. In my head, the upper part of the shoe feels a bit more cushiony and supple once I relace them after they've been stored unlaced. This perceived experience is kind of an interesting thing to consider, so let me know in the comments if you have ever noticed this as well. But I was even more interested in trying to figure out if the shoes visibly wear out quicker. Not wearing the same shoe every day is generally agreed to make the shoe last longer, as the rotation allows the foam to decompress a bit more over the extra day or two. But I wondered if the release of the laces from untying allows the upper and sidewall material to also decompress. Did this also make it last longer? I hope the gist of the test is clear now, so let's have a chat about the attempted research I did. Before I did the test, these were the few shreds of information I was able to find online about the topic. To be transparent, I could not find any published data that supports a hypothesis that storing shoes unlaced will make them last longer. So it really was just an anecdotal hunch I had from lived experiences, discussions with other runners, and the blogs and articles I found online. Yes, I do wish there were more scientific, peer-reviewed studies on this topic, but I was unable to find them. If you do know of one, please by all means leave me a comment and a link. From verywellfit.com, an article on how long do running shoes last stated that you should always undo the laces when you put your shoes on and off. Avoid just toeing them off when you finish your run. Not lacing and unlacing can break down the heel of your shoe, which means your shoes can get overstretched. I found a random blog post here titled "Untie Your Shoes." While the end recommendation does correspond to my hypothesis, the main point the author makes is around preserving the structural integrity of the heel of the shoe by not smashing it every time you step into the tied shoe. something we're all guilty of at least sometimes. Really just more of the same about the heel wear concerns on Reddit. I also learned that there is a mighty contingent of people that tie their shoes once and never retie them again after that. They just slip them on and off forever. Lastly, I posed the question on the world famous letsrun.com forum. I was met with 2 upvotes, 7 downvotes, and a few critical comments. Let's read them quickly. One guy said, "Seriously, this is overkill, just get Vibrams." I think that this is some sort of diss, but could be actual advice. Not sure. The next person said, "Will the paint on my walls fade quicker if I turn the light on at night? What if I use a lower wattage light bulb? Are there any peer-reviewed papers that show the optimum wattage of a light bulb to give maximum light but minimum fade?" This got 8 upvotes, so I think they were onto something. I just don't know what. Someone called my post spam, which is funny because it clearly was a real question I had because I ran this whole test and made this video. And lastly, I replied that this is a serious question, and that got 2 downvotes. Honestly, for letsrun.com, this level of response is actually a huge win. From this limited and anecdotal information, the point of exacerbated heel wear becoming an issue from putting shoes on and off that are still laced up was a common theme. I was conscious about the heel smashing in the testing, but I was more personally interested in how the upper area of the shoes wears out. So I did often unlace the right shoe just to put them on because they wouldn't fit otherwise, and then I would retie them again. When I first started running in the late 2000s, basically all of the running shoe uppers looked like this, with a more spongy, cottony upper. Basically all of the available shoes in the market now have uppers with a more synthetic, rubbery, slippery material. Both styles are susceptible to wear, of course, but it is interesting to wonder if the newer upper materials don't wear out as quick, or in other words, are more durable. That being said, I know ASICS and Mizuno still sell some of the old style shoe uppers. I was also interested to see if the shoes being wet versus dry had an impact on the wear of the upper when stored laced up. Here in Vancouver, it rains a lot and you basically have to run in the rain at least sometimes if you want to be a runner around here. My thought was that when the upper is wet and being stretched out or tensioned by the laces, that puts more stress on the upper material and potentially caused it to wear out faster. The experiment parameters were approximately 50 to 70 kilometers a week of running. Probably not as enough as I needed to, but that's all I did. No walking or casual usage of the shoes. I only wore them for running specifically. I did both trail and road running, but it was mostly road running. The shoes were always stored indoors at room temperature. The duration of the test was 3 months. Again, it was a build-up period to the Vancouver Marathon. To go over the results in a little bit more detail here, the main thing to note is that for the right shoe, there are some more peeling points on the outer part of the upper, where there are 2 materials glued together. This shoe has a lot of glued materials, so it could have been that the increased pressure on the 2 attachment points from not unlacing is what caused the difference in wear. The left shoe is just starting to maybe see some equivalent peeling, but not as clear as the right shoe. The bottom of the shoe, aka the outsole, appears to have equal wear on the tread, and the toe box and heel seem to be about the same as well. Of course, this is still observational, and I acknowledge that I did not capture more measurable results, like glue degradation values or material stretch rates, but I think you can understand that I don't have the skill set or tools to do that. If you made it this far into the video, you might have already started typing a list into the comment section of issues with this experiment. Some obvious issues I can point out are, the shoes I used are very specifically designed for trail running. So the fact I was using them on the road so much makes for a possible impact to the typical or expected wear pattern of the shoes. I have a generally even stride and neutral foot strike. You can be the judge. However, if I did favor one foot over the other due to a stride imbalance, that would have impacted the wear. Of course, probably the number one issue is that the sample size is just one person, me, and one set of shoes. This means that I cannot make a definitive statement on the results, of course. However, the result of the laced shoe wearing out more than the unlaced shoe did support my hypothesis. I also have some bias, of course, with this test because it clearly makes for a more interesting test result if a wear difference is visible. However, it is hard to really perceive how that would have impacted the use of the shoes or if it somehow exacerbated the wear accumulation on the right shoe specifically. Anyways, thank you for learning about this experiment. Please let me know if you have any information or advice on how to run the test better. If you are curious, I ended up running 3:25 in that marathon race. which is well off my best time, but also well off my worst time too. Happy running and happy lacing. I'm out.